Well, folks, here's a staple for you. It's one of the original Ben Brady's, which is the listing presentation agenda. This is one of the most listened to episodes in our first season. However, it's something that I constantly get requests to do is take people through the listing presentation agenda because, again, it sets up the entire listing presentation. I go through a few philosophies. It marries in with a great deal of the other podcast episodes that we've done on a practical standpoint of, whether it be the initial phone calls to set the appointments and getting price before you go, all the way down to the way that you go through the tour of a property. Now you're sitting in the kitchen or the dining room, or at the dining room table or the kitchen table, or standing around in the kitchen, making sure you've got complete control, and then you're going through the agenda. I hope it helps. It gives some really good context to the way that you absolutely need to frame the beginning of the meeting to keep control for everything else. Thank you. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. So continuing on with our listing presentation series of the continuing stuff that we've done, all the way from setting the appointment when somebody makes an inbound phone call to you or you're reaching out to them, and how you go through that procedure, all the way down to then opening up the listing presentation, going into the front door of that property, getting your notes and comparing those notes in order to build rapport quickly, getting in the right position, sitting at the dining room table, and you've built rapport, you've done everything appropriate to this point. I said this on one of our previous podcasts, is that I believe that you've got 80% more of a chance if you've done all of that entry part of this correctly. I think there's something to be said about the way that you handle those phone calls in the first degree of meeting somebody, getting them to do a virtual tour, getting the price out of them before they go, asking them all the questions and the reconfirmation of things, and then getting to the front door and having a set way of which you're going to do it, setting your stuff down in the right appropriate place, making sure you're comparing those notes. All of that leads to where we're going to go to today, sitting at the dining room table, because you want to be at that table. That's one of my first things that I mentioned so many times in one of the other episodes, is you've got to be in a position in a dining room table or a kitchen table or something along those lines. If there's no tables in the house, stand around the kitchen counter or the kitchen bench top, right, and do it from there. You've got to be in that controlling position. I don't want to be in a lounge room where I can't actually write anything down. I can't show them things without them being distracted, all of that stuff. But today, we're going to go through setting the agenda. Setting the agenda in your listing presentation, and why we go through and we do these certain things at the time of those agenda. It's a very practical element of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. This is the foundation to any good listing presentation. If you ask me, it's the foundation of my listing presentation that has evolved after thousands and thousands and thousands of presentations. Now, you may think that I'm just being egotistical, but realistically, I've sat in front of more sellers than many people have had hot dinners in all over the world, whether it be Australia, whether it be in the US, whether it be in San Diego, whether it be Oregon, whether it be all these different places. And this agenda has served me completely well to make sure that I can cover off and I can understand exactly what I need to go down and what are the important parts, but also get the seller to focus on the important parts. Now, I did another episode on Rethink Real Estate where it's the 3 closing questions. I'm going to give that as an example today in actual raw form. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the agenda and I'm going to set the agenda in a ongoing script. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to dissect it a little bit. But just to give you an understanding, as I go into that listing presentation, I've already dropped off a pre-listing kit. In that pre-listing kit, as I've already mentioned on other episodes, I've got a copy of the listing agreement with sign here stickers on it. I've got some testimonials, but I don't have a great deal of other things in there. I just have some appropriate information, probably about our auction process as well, just to make sure that they're maybe a little bit intrigued. But I will go as far as to say I don't think 50% of people actually even look at what you drop off prior to you actually getting there. They wait until you're there to go through that information. But then I take in a legal pad with me, and I also take in just some of our auction information about that process itself. Now, when I'm sitting at the dining room table, okay, I'm making sure that I've got good eye contact with them. I'm making sure that I've got a blank piece of paper in front of me. I typically have a Sharpie in my hand, and I go through and I open up and set the agenda. So let's break into role play and let's go through it. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to sit in front of you today and go through our listing presentation. I want you to understand that my primary responsibility today is to give you all the education that you need to make an informed and educated decision around how you're going to sell your property. So to do that, I want to set an agenda And to set an agenda, I need to ask you a few questions up front. I want to make sure that we don't miss anything. The agenda is more for me to keep me on track, but it's also to ensure that you get everything that you want to out of today's meeting. So, a couple quick questions. First one is, what would you like to ultimately achieve out of today's meeting? Do you have a goal in all of this? Well, yes, Ben, we just want to know what you think about our house and how much it's worth. Okay, so price. Okay, great. And, your fees and how you're going to do it, really, helping us make a decision on who we're going to use. I'm like, okay, no problem. Next question is, how will you be choosing a real estate agent? Do you have any criteria of the way that you're going to be choosing them? Well, it's going to come down to what people think about our price. Okay. All right. Final question for me. How would you like me to close you today? What do you mean by that? Hey, look, it's an unorthodox question, but the reason I ask it up front is that in the real estate industry, people have often been told that it's a complete failure of an appointment unless they hard press you at the end of it in order to get you to commit to them. I want to make sure that we're upfront with the way that you would like to close out this meeting today, just so that I don't try and awkwardly press you at the end or ask you any questions or have different expectations of the way that this meeting is going to conclude and unravel any of the good work that I do here today. I want to make sure that you understand that I'm happy for you to sleep on it if that's something that you want to decide, because if I'm the best today, I should be the best tomorrow after you sleep on it as well. But I really want to be upfront with that so we can all relax and make sure that we don't have an awkward interaction at the end of the meeting. So how would you like this meeting to close off, essentially, is what I'm asking. Well, yes, no, we'd like to think about it. Great, excellent. So after today, we'll think about it. We'll set an appropriate follow-up time so that then I'm not pestering you and we can go from there. How's that sound? Great, excellent, awesome. Great, we can all relax now. So the next part of this is me setting an agenda. Now, one of the things that you mentioned to me a couple of times now is price. So I'm just going to write this down, agenda. Okay, I write agenda at the top of the page, folks, for those that are wondering. Okay. So number one, I'm going to put price. Now, when I was on the phone with you, John, okay, you had mentioned between 500 and 550. It was sort of where it was. Carol, I didn't get a chance to speak with you, obviously. Carol, how do you feel about that? Oh, well, I think we'd probably need more than that if we're actually going to move into that other home. Okay. Well, guys, we can talk about all of this now, just so that we're very clear around where your expectations lie. Do we need to get more than 550? Well, yeah, we probably do. Okay, great. Well, so we need to look at whether or not it's feasible to get more than 550. Okay, great. Now, next part of this is I'd like to write down or suggest the next item of the agenda, if that's okay with you. My next item in the agenda is method. Now, I want to write that down, but the reason that I'm bringing up method is because today I want to talk to you about not only the traditional method of how we can, typically price a property and the traditional element of things and timelines and how all of that works, but I want to talk to you also about another strategy, and I want to show you that I've got more tools in my tool belt available. Now, they might not be appealing to you, but we have a non-distressed auction process. Well, no, Ben, don't even bother bringing that up. We just want to do this traditionally. I know, but hey, look, I want to give it maybe we'll give it a couple of minutes. I'd talk to you about it. I just want you to know that that it's available to you, that if I'm the person you choose to go traditional, we can always convert over to auction, or if we go auction, we can convert traditional. I'm not trying to say that you need to use it or not use it. I just would feel like it's my professional obligation today to give you all your options that you can then understand what's available to you. So let's give it a little bit of time. And if you don't like it, we don't use it. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, we can do that, but I don't think it's the right thing for us. No problem. We'll just go over it just to see if, again, sometimes people like to use it instead of doing a price reduction if we get the price wrong in the beginning, okay, is that they can do an auction. It's a really good tool to be able to have because no other agent that you've spoken to probably has given you multiple methods. Okay, next part, I want to talk about marketing. If that's okay with you, is that all right? Well, yeah. We want to talk about marketing as well because I don't like to. Marketing is a word we'll use, but I label it as peace of mind because I believe that marketing, what it does, it creates peace of mind for you and I. That when I bring you an offer and we believe that it's the best offer that we can get, that you feel confident signing it. Okay, or have the peace of mind that there's no one else out there that's willing to pay more. That's what that gives us. So we'll talk about the peace of mind sector or the marketing sector here as well. But my final thing that I would suggest that we go through is fees. So how much we charge, how much this is going to cost you to sell your home. Is that right? Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Okay, so we've got price, we've got method, we've got marketing, We've got fees. Now, in price, I said 5 to 550 because I spoke to you on the phone with that. Carol, you think we need more money, so we'll talk through that as our first part of the agenda. Okay. Method, we'll give a little bit of time to auction, but we'll primarily focus on traditional. Marketing for the overall peace of mind. Fees, so that you know exactly what it's going to cost you. Is there anything else that you want to go through today? Oh, yeah. Open houses, do you believe in those? Yep, we'll go through that in method. What about, marketing? Yeah, you said marketing, but whose cost is that? Yep, we'll go through that as well. No problem at all. Well, how much do you charge? I'm not sure how much you charge. We'll go through that in fees. No problem. Yeah, we'll go through all of that. Anything else I'm missing? No, I think that pretty much does it. Okay, great. I'm going to write 2 words down the bottom of the agenda. The first word I've written is comfortable. And the reason that this might sound a little cliche salesy, because it kind of is, but I want to make sure that I'm very clear about what these 2 words are. First one is comfortable, because you need to feel comfortable in the way that we do this, regardless of whether it's me, someone else, whatever it may be. Your primary asset, you're in complete control. You need to feel completely comfortable with the way that we do this. Okay? That's why it's my job today to give you all the information for you to make the informed and educated decision. I'll only offer my opinion up if you invite me to do so at particular times. Now, that said, the next word is confident, because forgetting price, method, marketing, fees, the brand I work for, any of that stuff that we talk about today, the first thing that I would think that is the most important that you need to get out of today's meeting is that you're completely confident in my ability to defend your price expectations and also get you the highest price for your property. That, I think, is the primary part in all of this in listing presentations. Most of the time people think it's what people offer you. No, it's the individual themselves, because I'm the one that's going to be in control, essentially, of the outcome for you, one of your biggest assets. So confident is one of the most important parts. Comfortable and confident. Forgetting everything else, we can always do it the way you want to do it, but the confident element that I'm going to represent you guys to the best degree is the most important part, I think, in today's presentation. So we've gotten through all of that. Comfortable, confident. Anything else? No, we're good. Excellent. Let's dive in. Okay, folks, I'm out of role play. That is setting the agenda. That is the same agenda that I've always used. I want to go through a few key things. First of all, most of the time when I ask those questions, and this is obviously a little bit deeper gone into I dive deeper into this in one of the other previous episodes, the 3 closing questions on the podcast. However, those 3 questions, I believe that is closing in the very beginning of the meeting in order to make sure that there's no awkward interaction, but it also tells me a very clear story of the type of people that they are. So what would you like to achieve out of the meeting? I want to know what my property is worth. How will you be choosing your agent? Or it's going to come down to their opinion of price and, the fees they charge. What is that telling me? That this person is very focused on the price, very focused on the fees. So at the end of the day, they're going to be my points here where I'm going to have to get ready to make sure that I see that person coming, so to speak. And then, how would you like me to close today's meeting? What do you mean? How would you like to close the meeting off? Well, we want to sleep on it. Great. So that I don't have an awkward interaction. Now, I go through that deeper of why we actually do that. I actually go through a few more better scripts and some more different iterations of that in the previous episodes of the 3 closing questions. But realistically, I really believe that sets the meeting up for somebody to feel far more relaxed. Now, as we dive into the agenda, hey, I do this to keep myself on track so that therefore we can make sure we benefit. We get everything. We go through everything that you want to today. Okay, essentially, price obviously came up a fair few times, but I've always put price at the beginning. And the reason I do that is that in one of the other episodes we do, which is getting price before you go, in the listing presentation series in the podcast, is one of the reasons I do that is to make sure that I write that down so that then we've got a clear comparative to what I've actually heard. Because the other part of this that I do that most agents don't do and that I've seen not done in the past and has tripped them up many, many times is they don't confirm with the other party in the room, whether it's a wife, whether it's a spouse, whether it's whoever it is, the other party that might be there. If it's not a sole decision maker, you've only spoken to one person on the phone, you've got to make sure that you cross-check and clear that with the other party. So as I said, 5 to 550, John, you and I discussed that over the phone, is your primary target in the range of what you're looking. Carol, how do you feel about that? Well, I think we need more money. Bam. You would have done a whole presentation around 5 to 550, right? And then you would have gotten out there and Carol's like, well, we need more money. If he only thinks we can get 550, you probably wouldn't have got the business. Get that clarity. Get that clarity. That's the point of it. Okay. And then once you've written it down, I've seen probably about 20% of the time and a seller go back on that as well and go, well, I know I said 5 to 550, we probably need more money. I think it's worth more or whatever it is. You get them to come out with that stuff so that you're not pitching them on those price points, guys. Now, I know pitching auction, you can avoid price and blah, 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 but whatever. Now, going into method, you notice that there was maybe some resistance by John about talking about auction, but I'm always going to make sure that I go through everything. Hey, it's my professional obligation to make sure that we just touch on it so that you understand all the tools in my tool belt. But also I made it a point in saying, hey, not many other agents have anything else that they can offer you outside of the traditional element. Some agents will just come back to you in 2 weeks' time with a price reduction. We can offer you auction instead. We can go from price to auction to price. I just want to show you some of the diversity that we have in the business. I still don't think it's for us, but hey, let's just give it a little bit of time. Even if we don't use it, at least you know about it. Great. Okay. Get the permission. Okay. Marketing. I call it peace of mind because we don't want to get attached to the marketing. Guys, don't get into the marketing war. Please don't get into the marketing war. I'll go through that in a minute. You don't want to start comparing yourselves from a marketing perspective to people because marketing is the biggest sham that I've ever seen in my life. Realistically, you put it on the MLS, you let it syndicate, you might do a few flyers and a few door knocks and you do a few little other things. But really, outside of that, you're only doing stuff in order to self-promote yourself. Marketing is actually the most feared question in real estate is not how much do you charge, it's how will you market my property. Okay, we'll dive into that in another episode. Now, fees. I'm always upfront about fees. The reason I'm upfront about fees and I'm reason that this agenda works with the fee perspective, I will never forget a meeting that I had, okay, with our marketing team when we first moved to the US. They didn't set an agenda with me. So what they would do every month, they'd come to us with different marketing ideas that we could do to expose our products and blah, 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 blah. And they'd never set an agenda. They'd just sit there and start going through things. My first immediate question was, that's cool. How much? They never set an agenda to say, Ben, we're going to go through all the prices at the end of it. They never got me committed to the idea before I started asking them how much. And I had the permission to ask for how much because they never had set an agenda in place. I think it's important that you always have to bring that person back to, well, how much do you actually charge? Hey, we're going to go through that in the fee section. I'd really like to go through everything here first and then discuss fees in that particular section and we can dive right into it and get deep into it. And if somebody starts calling you out like, oh, you're just avoiding that. Yes, I am, because I don't want to go through it right now because we're talking about something completely different. Right? If you want somebody that's just in comparison to their fee, then I might not be the right person for you. If you want someone that's just going to ultimately give you a fee and then you can make a judgment call based on the fee that they're offering and not look at any of the other stuff that they do, then that's not me for you. Going through fee and keeping that level of control. Now, after I've gone price, method, marketing, fees, I go back through before I write comfortable and confident. Is there any other questions? Now, at this part, it is physically impossible to go through everything to do with real estate in one individual presentation unless you have a full day to do it. Now, I have a set agenda and a set process to go through if they don't have any questions, but they might ask, what about open houses? We go through that in the method section. So what is your fee? We're going to go through that in the fee section. What about marketing? Is it going to be like in newspapers? We'll go through that in the marketing section. The biggest challenge that you've got at this section that I often see, the biggest trip up for agents, is they chase rabbits down rabbit holes. When someone asks a question and they go chasing after that question because they know the answer or they want to address it right now, that is what the agenda does. It gives you this format to make sure that you've got control over that meeting so that you don't go chasing rabbits down holes and you don't go into these sections. Think about a listing presentation as like a line of dominoes. One domino is out of place. You don't get to the end result of them all falling over. Okay, something is missed. That is the same with this listing presentation or this individual agenda itself. Now, the two words at the bottom, yes, cliche, yes, real estate, but I've done it all the time. But what I'm trying to do here, comfortable, yes, I want to make sure they feel comfortable. But the real word that I want them to understand is confident, because this is where I get to win. Give an example. Price, method, marketing, fees. I'm never going to win when somebody compares me with price because I'm not going to sit in front of them and overpromise them a price. Not at all. Okay, I'm not going to make up numbers. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Method, yes, we have a distinct advantage that if you are an agent that is offering auction, yes, you have a distinct advantage there that there is a point of difference. But what is your advantage if you're not doing that? Nothing. You will lose if you compare yourself with anyone else because you might do things a little bit quirky or different or whatever it may be. But realistically, you're doing the same as everyone else in a traditional sale. Now, that said, marketing. If you compare yourself with anyone else, if they're comparing you with anyone else to do with marketing, there's always someone else out there that is willing to offer them more or do more for less or whatever it is. And I hope you never ever win based on your fee, because that means you were the lowest probably. Okay. Realistically, you don't want to be compared with anybody in the perspective of price, method, marketing, fees in any way, shape, or form. That's why you want to point out to them, regardless of the way that they want to do it, regardless of what their expectations are, regardless of everything, the primary decision that you need to make today is that you're completely confident in my ability to get you the highest price out of the marketplace. That is what you need to do. I was always incredibly confident in the fact that my ability was better than others. Now, that might be arrogant of me to think, but I think you have to think that in real estate if you're going to win in these highly competitive environments. If you don't have a repeat and referral client base, if you don't have a business where 100% of your business and you're happy with your income comes from a referral network where you've built relationships with people and you need to compete for listings, you're always going to compete for referrals where people don't know you better or whatever it is. You need to be buttoned up with this stuff and you need to be able to be confident. The thing that I've always framed my ability with is that I wanted to make sure that I had the ability to say this in a listing presentation to somebody. Did you test drive your car before you bought it? Yes, we did. Great. Why don't you test drive your agent in the ability and my tactics to negotiate for you for your biggest asset? I think test driving me would be an appropriate thing to do. We always try a lot of different things before we buy them, whether that be a mattress, whether that be a car, all these big decisions. Your primary asset, you should know that I have the ability to do this and I haven't just been riding the wave of a really good marketplace. Ask me what my tactic is for negotiation. How do I frame things up? How do I think about things? Now, if that question makes you nervous right now, folks, we'll do another podcast episode on that. No problem at all. I've just thought about that. That could be amazing. That's great. Okay. We'll do another whole podcast episode on that. But realistically, you have to be confident that that's where you win the business. That is where you win it. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an understanding of the way that you can frame up your listing presentation, the way you can keep control in that meeting. You don't have to follow this precisely, but there's some individual principles in it that I want you to take on, which is getting price out in the open, making sure that you're not chasing questions down the rabbit holes, okay? Making sure that you're putting out there that the one thing that they need to focus on above all else is your individual ability to get them the highest price possible, okay? And your own inability to defend their property. Hopefully it's helped, folks. The agenda is a very sought after item. It's one of the most listened to episodes on our season 1. You might want to go to that one as well and have a look, because obviously some things change and different perspectives and different scripts or whatever it is. It's always a little different. But either way, it's one of the most listened to because people want to learn it over and over and over and over again, because it really sets the precedent for everything else. We'll go through each individual section in future podcast episodes, but reach out if there's anything else you'd like us to go through. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully it's helpful. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.